Hello and welcome to today's AWCI's Convention and INTEX Expo Reconstructed. Today's presentation is Navigating Uncharted Waters, AWCI Contractors and COVID-19. I am Anne-Marie Salvatelli, AWCI's Director of Education, and I will be your host for today's presentation. A few housekeeping notes for all. If attendees can adjust your mics to mute during the presentation. This way we can ensure the lines are clear for our presenters. Should you have a question at any time during the broadcast, please submit it using the question box in your GoToMeeting dashboard, and we'll have a brief Q&A at the end of our presentation. We also have in the handouts tab, there is a PDF of the PowerPoint for you all. Today's moderator, Kyle Hamer, is the president of Hamer Marketing Group and is passionate about helping businesses leverage technology and data to grow their business. So no stranger to technology. He previously held executive leadership positions with software technology and service companies. So with that, Kyle, lead us off, please.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thanks for having me. And thank you to everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend our panel as we look at something that's we're really barreling down the interstate here in completely uncharted territories. As Anne-Marie said, my name is Kyle Hamer. I am the president and owner of Hamer Marketing Group and have been involved with AWCI for the last about 5 years. We're really in the midst of doing something brand new and experiencing something that maybe, I don't know if we'll ever see again in our lifetime. And we put together a panel of some of the best and brightest amongst us who are both either experiencing or in the midst of experiencing or dealing with the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis in their specific areas and their unique challenges based on each individual region. Today's panelists are Brittany Daly, and Brittany, you'll have to help me. I'm struggling with your last name. How do we say your last name? Can you introduce yourself?
Of course, no problem. It's Brittany Daly Grishayeva. Thank you.
She's the president and CFO of Daly Drywall. And you've been with Daly for how many years, Brittany?
About 10 years officially.
Great. And then we have Jeff Driesward, who's the director of operations at TJ Weiss in Salt Lake City, Missouri, or St. Louis, Missouri. Jeff has been, you've been with TJ Weiss for how long, Jeff?
13 years.
Great. And then Larry White is the president and CEO of Applied Restoration up in Tukwila, Washington, which is just outside of Seattle. Larry, you've been in the business for how many years?
Well, I've been in business for 40 years, and I have been with Applied Restoration for 6.
That's great. And then we have Lee Zaretsky. Did I say that right, Lee?
Zaretsky, close enough.
Zaretsky, who's the president of Ronsko Inc. in New York City. Who's kind of the hub of everything going on.
Lucky us.
Say again?
Lucky us.
Earlier this week we got together and we had middle of last week we got together to talk about this particular topic, and I can tell you each individual business leader is facing unique challenges. While we all share a common bond here, what's going on with COVID-19 and the coronavirus is changing rapidly. On March 10th, this was probably the first infographic that was published about what was going on and what we could expect. And for the majority of what you see here, this is true, right? The symptoms are similar to the flu or a cold. We have a dry, non-productive cough. Symptoms will take 10 to 15 days to appear. Sometimes you'll get a fever. People who are in a chronic position or have chronic illnesses or have compromised immunities, they tend to be at higher risk. Fast forward to today, which is only 20 days later, and we're seeing that not only is the virus growing exponentially, but we're having to change policies, projects, and projections across all businesses and in adjusting to what this means for our environment. Oh, it looks like my screen got cut off. As of this morning, we had 142,000 confirmed cases we had a little under 4,800 people who had recovered and just shy of 2,500 deaths. That was as of 10 o'clock this morning. But what you can see here is a real-time map of the spread of the coronavirus across the United States based on cases. This is on the New York Times. It's an interactive map. So if you're not paying attention to this, you should. And what you can see here is we have people from every epicenter who can speak to what's going on. And so what I want to do right now is I actually want to turn it over to Lee, and I want you to tell us a little bit about, well, actually, before you to Lee, Larry, what you said it was about 3 weeks ago, Seattle and Upper Washington had some of the first confirmed cases. Can you tell us a little bit about what you first saw several weeks ago and what your team did to respond? Sorry, Larry,
Actually, so I was looking back at my calendar, and it was actually in about mid-February where Seattle saw the first cases. So it's been over a month now that we've been dealing with it in Seattle. But it seemed like the first cases were, it started in a nursing home in Kirkland, which is about 15 miles from my office, and it was pretty isolated. And there wasn't a lot of information out, I don't remember at the time, it just seemed like it wasn't going to touch us because it was, older people in a nursing home that were at risk. It was pretty isolated there, and nobody talked about actually how contagious this was at the time. So things kind of went on normally. There wasn't too much talk about it at that time. I ended up traveling down to California, where I happened to be in Santa Clara when the first cases were announced there, and we were maybe joking about it a little bit. But from there, another week later, and this thing really starts to ramp up, and then it was about 3 weeks before we saw the big changes, and obviously every day it keeps changing, if not every hour.
Thanks for that, Larry. So one of the things that we did last week is we sent out a survey to the members of the AWCI, and we wanted to showcase kind of how prepared are people, or where are people at as it relates to what's going on with the coronavirus. And what I can tell you is based on the respondents, that a little more than half thought that there would be a pretty substantial disruption to business. Most everybody that was there thought that it was going to impact new and existing projects, and a large percentage of the people who responded really felt like that this was something that we needed to buckle our belts and strap in for the long haul. Amongst the respondents, we also had close to 90% of them who had already implemented social distancing and hand washing stations, but not enough of our members had actually put together plans of what happens if their business becomes non-essential. They hadn't put together, 40% hadn't put together plans yet for what employees might do for lost wages. And I think some of that had to do with waiting on the stimulus package, but there were also conversations that just, we weren't really necessarily thinking about this, whether you're a union or a in-house production. And roughly half of our membership that responded was already working from home. So at a really early shot at surveying our members, looked like, hey, we're going to have to buckle up for the long haul, but we hadn't necessarily rolled out all the steps. And one of the people that was first implemented or impacted with this was the daily drywall in the Santa Clara area. So can you talk a little bit, Brittany, about what you experienced? Larry said that he was down there when the first cases were announced, and I think Santa Clara was one of the first places to where the county responded with pretty stiff regulations or work orders, stay-at-home orders. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kyle. So like Larry said, the first 2 weeks of March were kind of the ramp up. It feels like just yesterday that we were wrestling with the decision to cancel our annual St. Patrick's Day party, which was supposed to be Friday, March 13th, and we did end up canceling that. Within just a few days of that, the third week of March, we had instructed everyone to work from home that was in the office and that could, which was about 70 office employees. And then just within a few days after we had instructed everyone to work from home, Santa Clara had announced the stay-at-home mandate. Santa Clara is going into our third week of the stay-at-home mandate, which is currently set to end April 7th, however, will most likely be extended. The most recent projection I saw this morning is that California would peak around April 24th, which is 10 days after the rest of the country. So our bell curve is slightly behind the rest of the country on when we're going to peak.
So, I mean, as you listen to Larry and you listen to Brittany, what we found out about this is not a matter of if, but when your business is going to be impacted by a stay-at-home work order, non-essential business, people getting sick. And so what does that look like in stages? What are some of the different stages? For you, Brittany, what is it you saw happen over the weeks? I mean, you said, hey, we were talking about not having St. Patrick's Day, and it's progressed to where some projects are canceled altogether?
Yes, yeah. The first week that our stay-at-home mandate was issued, again, the third week of March, we saw jobs just closing like dominoes that week. And we just started getting floods of emails on, it seemed like one at a time they were closing. However, within a day or two, and our general contractors realized that housing projects were considered essential. We were very fortunate and glad that we were in the multifamily residential as those remained open. And then just last week, Governor Newsom issued the statewide mandate and all construction was considered essential. However, since local regulation is a little bit stricter than statewide at this time, a lot of our commercial jobs have not reopened. But again, our multifamily residential jobs are currently open.
So Lee, I mean, you're in the middle of it right now. In New York is kind of the epicenter. We just got the boat delivered with the extra 1,000 beds. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with projects and what you're seeing there, what the different stages might be for where New York City is at presently.
Well, first week of March, I think we were starting to really feel some sort of pressure, but from the onset, construction was deemed essential, excluded from having these stay-at-home restrictions. And up until last Friday, construction was still deemed as an essential service. But Friday afternoon, the order came down, making it essential construction, hospitals, healthcare, government projects. And that's where we're at now. Some people voluntarily wanted to close down jobs. There was a lot of pressure on the interiors contractors sharing, vertical transportation, working in closed quarters to get it shut down. And the fear and the concern is definitely ramped up and continues to ramp up. You can see it, in the number of masks with the few people that are still walking around on the streets, to just the overall feeling and vibe, the way people are looking at each other suspiciously walking down the streets.
And you mentioned last week that the job sites, based on how they were set up, were not really conducive to people feeling comfortable on the sites. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the conditions and things you were seeing that, even with the additional safety precautions, were making people feel unsafe?
Well, hanging sheetrock requires two people, and to do that and keep in a safe 6-foot distance, or almost anything, are people working teams. So, you've got that, you've got crowded entries, and like I said, a lot of vertical transportation elevators that make it almost impossible to follow the CDC guidelines.
Now, last week you shared that there were several additional standards that were being rolled out. Maybe it was somebody else that was talking about even while essential construction was required, there were additional steps being added by the GCs. Was that you, or was that Jeff that was talking about the additional requirements that GCs were asking for the interiors trades to do?
think that was Jeff. But most of our contractors have really been deferring to the CDC guidelines.
So Jeff, what have you seen in the Midwest there relative to projects?
Well, I feel right now on our situation, I feel we're in between stage 2 and 3. On stage 2 side, it's we're working 65-75% of our office staff is working from home. And like the second week of March, we had the orders to stay at home designated in most counties in Missouri and Illinois. But construction sites were essential, so on majority of the jobs. So the jobs have been working here, but mainly the same thing. We're working with more stringent sanitize, making sure that hand wash areas, the 6 feet social distancing, and the GCs are really, kind of leaning on us too to, hey, what's your policies? So like I said, I think we're kind of behind what you guys are seeing in these other areas, but right now, I really think the landscape is going to be changing within a couple weeks. We just got a lot of people, fearful, just what's going to go on as, what they see around the United States. It's just like you said, it's coming. We just don't know how quickly it's going to get here.
Last week, Larry, when we spoke, you were talking about new projects that were slated, and you were having trouble procuring some of the necessary equipment. Are you seeing that that's still the challenge, or were you guys to find the masks you needed?
No, this is still a challenge. We've looked at specific filters or buying different types of masks, or now methods of actually cleaning filters or masks. And I've heard there's some new guidance on, I think it was Duke University's working on a method for actually disinfecting the masks so they can be reused. So obviously we're watching things like that. But I wanted to interject a little bit about the changing atmosphere as far as these closing and opening jobs. So we did have, Washington originally had construction as an essential. And then last Wednesday, the governor came out that said, commercial construction was not essential, and left it to basically the housing and the government as essential. But we do have a big job on an Indian reservation. So actually this morning, the governor came out with guidance on work on Indian reservations, and now he's saying that your shelter and home place isn't keeping you from going to work to commute to a reservation that's open, because the reservation now has the choice of having it as essential, and the reservation's decided that all construction is essential. The problem we have is that is mainly that our people are afraid. I talked to another contractor. That's a lot of what we're seeing, is that while you may have a job that's open, can you get anybody to actually go and man it? And that's where, it's really the young single guys that, they're hungry to work, but the guys with wives and kids are scared, and their wives are, hey, I don't want you going to work and bringing the virus back. Now the contractor has social distancing monitors on site, added hand washing, but like everybody says, a lot of work we do, it's teams, and you can't social distance. And then the other thing is, you can put everybody in protective gear if you can get it. So those are some of the things that we're seeing, and it's changed. Like you say, that new directive came out this morning, so it's changing constantly for construction.
Yeah, that's the big point in New York as well. We're really feeling that people are more and more concerned, and manning the projects hasn't been an issue yet, as most or a lot have shut down already. So there are some people that are still willing to work, and a lot of people are also tied up getting these temporary facilities up and running. The emergency place over at the Javits Convention Center, they've been working around the clock to get a 1,000-bed facility up and running. And there's assorted spaces happening all over the state doing the same that are draining resources.
Brittany, you talked about the challenge between the directives coming from the state and the county. How are you getting guidance on what you can and can't do with those conflicting messages?
You know, I'm on a whole bunch of email chains, and I've been talking to lawyers looking into it, and so far there hasn't been a clear, definitive what takes precedence, state or county. But to err on the side of caution, our general contractors, which we agree with, are keeping them closed if they aren't deemed essential by the county. So even though statewide all construction can be up and running, we're only working on residential job sites, which is deemed essential by the county.
Where would you say that you guys are at in Northern California? Are you in a kind of a stage 4, or do you see yourself moving into stage 5, or do you think you'll probably just sit at like a stage 4 here?
Yeah, we're between stage 4 and stage 5. We do have a mandated work stoppage on us right now, but with a lot of our job sites deemed essential, that kind of brings us back to stage 4. You know, I mean, I think we'll probably keep going the way that we're going, at least for another month. It's hard to predict, but the rate at which cases are still escalating at a significant rate, and depending on how people take it, people take the social distancing and what they do in their lives seriously. We need to slow the rate of increase. If they don't slow the rate of increase, I would expect the local and state authorities to make more stringent work stoppages and possibly make construction non-essential like they have in New York and other states.
Lee, what percentage of the jobs that you were working on met the criteria to keep going on Friday, and what percentage of your staff did you have to shut down when they rolled out the next round of stoppages?
We're heavily concentrated in hospital healthcare and some of these essential services. So prior to Friday, probably about half of our jobs were shut down. And as of this morning, there is no change based on this revised regulation that came out.
Okay. Before I move on to the next slide, this open up discussion for the panel here. Thinking about the spot you were in 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, for somebody that's not in the throes of a complete disruption or even a major production interruption, what are things to keep your eyes on and be aware of? What are things you wish you would have known 3 weeks ago that you know today?
I'll take, for me, what's been very beneficial is reaching out to peer groups across the United States to see what they're going through, what I can expect, what's coming down the pike. That has been very, very helpful to our company. And along with that, just in our area, we have, our president and CEO, he's working with AGC and the labor leaders, constantly talking through what's going on, just on the daily, on the hourly. So communication has been very key for our company. We have so many people involved trying to get through this. It's just, it goes real far when you could talk to Dailies or Larry White and any of those companies, New York City, especially how bad they're taking it right now. To me, that's beneficial to kind of know what we can expect here if it gets that severe.
Larry, is there something you wish you would have known when you found out about the first couple of cases in your county?
Yeah, I wish we'd have prepared a little faster. I mean, we did get hand sanitizer out, but what really kind of hit us is the loss of production we weren't ready for. So, you know, I know the GCs got hand sanitation and things like that out there pretty quickly, but you know, we're in an industry where production's a pretty, you know, drives our profit margins, and when your guys are spending 10 times more time washing their hands or you know, trying to work apart, you know, we saw a real drop in the actual production on the job. The other thing I'd say is I wish we'd have looked into some of our contracts sooner, because it's really important that you prepare notices. If you can't supply labor on a job, all of a sudden, you know, there's a lot of, like Brittany said, it's got a whole string of attorneys' emails. I do as well, and making sure that you're at least providing that, hey, you know, we're not sure about how this is going to affect it, but we want to protect our rights. You know, I don't know how you actually would put a claim to say, you know, your job staying open cost me money because we weren't as productive because of the coronavirus, when we'd have all been better off had to shut it down. But then there's also the cost of shutting it down. So that's something we're all going to be impacted by, and how even the jobs we're working on, we may not see the margin, and who's responsible for those losses. Something I wish we'd have thought about more sooner.
It was a great segue into the next piece here, which is, you know, kind of looking ahead and what the future holds. You know, there were companies like Dodge and Construct Connect that were predicting that 2020 and 21 were going to be a bit of a slowdown in general, but this is starting to stall much quicker than what expected. Brittany, can you talk a little bit too and about the things that we learned during the last economic slowdown and how you guys at Daily Drywall are addressing that?
Yes, yeah, definitely. The preparing for the longer term economic changes has definitely been one of our leadership team's main focus during all of this. And like I talked about in our preparation call, you know, I'm sure everybody attended how to prepare for the next recession seminars that AWCI and multiple other organizations have been given. And kind of the main lesson learned in all those seminars is act sooner. If you're going to make changes, make them sooner. And it's kind of the big lesson learned is face the facts, be realistic, and kind of prepare for the worst, right? And it's not that we think that this is going to be the next 2008, but whatever is going to happen, we should be prepared. So what we're doing is we're doing scenario planning, both for cash flow and for P&L. We kind of have, you know, we have like maybe 5 different scenarios, and we'll do scenario 1 is the most optimistic, basically as if none of this has happened and nothing has changed, and scenario 5 being worst case scenario, all construction's shut down, and then, you know, 3 through 4 kind of scattered in the middle. And then what we do is we'll do a plan of action to kind of match each scenario, and we'll implement kind of automatic triggers, if you will, where if this happens, then it will lead us to this plan of action. So for an example, if revenue drops by more than 25% for more than 2 months or 3 months, then we'll drop overhead by X, and then we'll outline the specifics on how. If revenue drops more than 50%, then we'll drop overhead by this, and we'll outline the specifics on how. One thing we've done kind of early on is we've cut our office down to a 4-day work week, or 32 hours, and everybody's getting 80%. And we are allowing people to use their PTO during this time. And our outlook is, you know, the reason we're doing this is to match our overhead with what our field operations are currently at right now. Everybody's been very understanding in the office on why we're doing that. And then they're not as busy. So even though they're working from home, most of them are able to take a 5th day off. And those that are busier or, still have more than 40 hours a week, we've kind of scattered or changed duties. For example, we've converted more project management towards estimating. I'm not an economist by any means, but all the experts in the field that I've spoken to believe there will be longer term economics effects from all of this. And the sounding kind of lesson from most of them is be realistic, face the facts, and hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Larry, you talked about you guys have put together some different financial programs and we're looking through things with your board. Would there have been any advantage to have gotten started on those economic outlooks sooner, or the timing was?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be help and money coming in, but I don't know that we know that much about it. That's another changing landscape. And each company is going to have to decide what they're going to take advantage of and what money we're going to be applied for. I'm not sure that. Well, none of us are sure how this program is going to work, but like Brittany said, you can cut down so much, but there comes a point when the other thing we're seeing is I had a contractor that owed me a check saying, well, our AP people aren't in, they're not working, or I don't have somebody coming in to sign a check. I know they can figure out how to get you paid, but I think a lot of the GCs are holding their money back as well because of the unknown and because this other help isn't out here yet. So that's another concern we need to be aware of. I would suggest to anybody that's looking for help, that's planning for the worst, may want to look into these loans and this federal help, the SBA, sooner than later.
Larry, what are you seeing from an economic impact to your? I mean, everything's still essential, but are we seeing slower payments yet? Are we seeing people not in the office? What do you see out east?
I'm seeing slower payments, and I'm seeing, some of the contractors kind of using it as excuses, but it's not everybody. My other concern really is retentions. We have a lot of retentions coming in right now on finished stuff we finished in the fourth quarter and the third quarter last year. That I'm, those payments are like, you're not going to see it for another month, or because we're working from home, we don't have everything done, all the stuff. So I am seeing a slowdown in cash. It's definitely affecting us, and we got to do our diligence to make sure that we've got cash flow coming in. The other thing is jobs that we were expecting to start in April are getting pushed back. So that's another thing we're looking at. Well, if all of a sudden I don't have that next job coming and the next billing in May, things are really tightened down. So I have to make decisions now. Maybe I need to cut staff back, or depending on jobs that we were expecting to start, not starting.
Lee, what are you seeing from a supply chain? I mean, I know you guys are kind of really in the thick of it right now, but are you seeing disruption in cash flow and supply chain?
Supply chain, there was one supplier that did temporarily close down, but then realized that, his customers have essential work. So they're back up and running now. As far as our customers are concerned, definitely difficult to get in the office. Emails working very, very well. It seems that the estimating department is quick to respond. The accounting department's not so quick. Whether that's convenience or otherwise, to be determined. But I'm definitely starting to sense that what was automatic, there's definitely a kink in that cash flow chain coming up. And 2 weeks ago, we started working everyone from home, office staff wise, and it's been pretty seamless. They're all logging in remotely to their desks and been very productive, and we're having our team meetings. So it's pretty incredible what the technology's enabled us to do. We're also using this opportunity to do some training and to allow people to catch up on some things that have been on the pile of the to-do list. So for right now, we don't have any overhead or office cutbacks, and the field is all at will, so a lot of people did get laid off. But New York State eliminated the waiting period for unemployment insurance, and they increased the benefit $600 a week, which has really been a saving grace, I believe, for most of the people in the field.
That brings up you mentioned something there that I think is interesting. Is anybody that's a panelist at this point had challenges relative to technology and mobilizing your workforce from being in the office to then working at home?
This is Jeff. For us, it's worked pretty well. We were doing a lot, just started doing some of these team meetings, which that's just another learning curve. It's working real well. We've done, had a PM superintendent's meeting the other day with 16 people that, we got through a couple little issues, but it's been working great. We just had a meeting this morning, leadership meeting. So just everybody, I was at the office, and a couple of us at the office, and the other people were at home, so that worked well. That actually, I see the technology as just another opportunity to use some of these tools, in my mind. So that's working pretty good for us right now at this point.
Everybody's okay. I mean, I think we had a brief discussion about AP and cutting checks and able to make sure that you can still pay people while moving to work from home.
Yeah, that hasn't been any for us. That hasn't been any problem. We're direct deposit. We're working very efficiently from working at home. It hasn't been a problem for us yet. And there again, we're kind of behind you guys. We had a pretty strong billing month. The money's coming in, but I'm sure we're going to see the same thing as Larry mentioned and Lee is the money's going to get tighter and tighter. And just like Brittany said, you just have to start making those key decisions on your office staff and everything. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But we're prepared if it does.
Well, I think, go ahead, Lee.
I was just going to say, getting back to your question about what we're doing to prepare, we're already starting to look ahead at some of these projects that are being shelved that people were not very happy that they're deemed non-essential, that as soon as they lift up this gate, people are going to want their stuff done and done quickly and to make up for lost time. So, I mean, that's some real conversations we're starting to have, because a lot of unproductivity can come out of that as well.
Lee, and as you're starting to think ahead and look ahead, just a very frank question, with the unemployment spiking at the 3 to 4 million additional people being laid off just within the last couple of weeks, do you anticipate that some of the labor that was in other sectors might be able to be brought in to help deliver those projects once people are ready to get rolling, or do you think we'll continue to fight with labor even after we ramp back up?
Well, we don't really have a labor shortage here in New York. We've been very fortunate with that, especially being a union. And people are just waiting at home on the sidelines, and they can't wait to come back to work once they get the all clear. So I don't see that being an issue. I just seen the inefficiencies and the trait stacking and the normal claim-related items that we're going to need to be very careful and document and manage, because otherwise those margins can slide very, very quickly.
Great, thanks. So just a couple of things here. This article was published by Level Set, which you guys may know. They're they were, what were they originally? Z-Lean was the name of their company, and now they've transitioned their business into other things. There's a pretty valuable article they have out there on what's going to happen in ways to look at protecting the finances of your business, both projecting it out as well as stuff that's going on from day to day. One question I do have for the group, which I don't think we've got to yet, is what's been the actual impact on your labor force relative to getting sick or being too afraid to come to work? Brittany, Larry, are you seeing people that are not coming to work on the West Coast?
That's funny you ask. We haven't seen anything yet, but I just got an email from a foreman this morning that was really my first indication that we have a foreman that doesn't want to come in. So far, luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had anybody sick or any symptoms or any positive test results. But it looks like we're just starting to see some foremen that might not want to come in due to protecting his family.
Larry, what about your team?
Well, I've seen it in Seattle. I think we pulled one site, and 9 out of 10 didn't want to come in, though they did continue to come in as long as the site was open. But I do. My son actually works for a company in Oregon, a wall and ceiling contractor, and they actually had 3 people get the virus while working on a medical facility that had people coming in from testing, and so that's a little bit of a challenge there. And now they're refusing to send people back to that job because they felt like the contractor was did not have a safe site. But that's definitely considered essential because it's a medical facility. So I don't know how they're dealing with that challenge now, but I know things like that are out there. At the end of the day, when I talk to our attorneys about this, if you do feel a site's unsafe, you've got to think about your workers first. And if the contractor or customer is not taking seriously the challenges of this, it's going to be up to you. And we are yet to know what kind of liabilities might come out of this if you had a employee get sick or, God forsake, die from this virus when you had them on a job that wasn't, didn't have good policies in place.
And Kyle, this is Jeff. In our market, we have just maybe a few employees that are really now after week 2 starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but most everyone is working and slightly worried maybe, but we haven't really seen the problem here yet. But there again, I think there's still we've had a couple cases around here where somebody is getting tested for the virus, and that really starts rumors. So our biggest thing around here is everybody needs to be honest and transparent, and understanding. I think I stated the other day, we had a few people sick, just out of nervous. They might have a baby at home and, they might have a stomach ache. So they would call us and say they're not coming in today. So what we did is we tried to be proactive, send a letter to the GC, protecting their HIPAA rights and just tried to be very transparent with our customer on, hey, so-and-so, we're going to send you over this letter, and naturally we need a doctor's release. So we kind of went through that format for 2 weeks pretty solid, and I think for us it was just a lot of fear out there. So that's calmed down a little bit, but I think some of these guys are working because they really don't know the unknown of when it might shut down. So that's kind of what we're seeing here.
Lee, I mean, you guys are in the thick of it, and being a union area, are you struggling getting labor or having to pay any additional to get workers on the jobs?
Yeah, there's massive fear going on here. I mean, last week there were 2 construction workers that died of COVID over on a couple of sites. There are a lot of people that were on those sites, and the way that the protocol works, I don't know about everywhere, but if someone is diagnosed, all you have to do is close the job down, clean it up, and you can go back to work the next day. So people weren't too happy about going back to those sites. I mean, that wasn't mine, but the trades speak a lot, and a lot of people were very, very concerned about that. And as this goes on, the numbers go up and up. Less people, and like you're saying, their families don't want them going to work. So this mandate has actually been a relief to a lot of people and to us as well. I mean, there's a lot of issues here. There's the legal liability. I mean, at some place I heard one port of relief could be a workers' comp claim if someone gets this. I mean, and think about how disastrous that would be for us and our mods and things like that too. So I think there's a lot of little underlying things here that we're yet to see the devil come out in full gear.
Great. All right, so keep us moving here. One of the things that I think is important is to stay ahead of it. And to the point of what Steve was talking about, managing fear, managing expectations. There's not only the expectations of managing employees, but managing the expectations of their family and helping keep the teams that have loved ones at home not only educated about what you're doing, but also supported and in the know. We put together some resources here, and I know the AWCI is building a page as well with resources. But I'm curious for the panel, have there been any additional steps that you've taken to educate your staff and then ultimately their families on what you are doing to protect their health during this time?
Well, we started with toolbox talks and distributing all the CDC guidelines, and as soon as any sort of information gets disseminated to us, and I mean, I'm on listening to our governor and our mayor frequently, we're getting it all out there because we want to be following and sharing the best practices to stay ahead of this thing here, and to keep our people out of harm's way.
Yeah, we're the same way. We're just countless emails going out to our employees. Just our guide. Same thing, following CDC guidelines, and then we just been working real hard on communicating the safety team out there, going by the sites more, and showing them proper ways to make sure the masks are on right, and just doing more protocol, just being very open about communication. It's just you can't communicate enough right now, so that's what we've been trying to do to the best of our abilities.
Keeping our company culture and social interaction and living our values has been one of the main things we've also been focusing on. We've been doing our weekly Skype meetings where we do kind of have a social hour. We copied the one and done, that I know other contractors use. And so we'll have a beer or something on Skype all together. And then I've done a a video, a YouTube video, kind of just talking about how we are set up for success going into this because of our culture and our values and you know, what we live day to day and how we'll continue to live those values through all this. So talking about morale and the soft skills and the principles we live I think has really shown that it's kept people motivated, especially while working from home and during these difficult times.
You had to be living under a rock if you didn't know that we passed a $2 trillion coronavirus action recovery plan. The information that's coming out of that will be more and more. I think you'll see in the coming days, little weeks. Barry talked about it. The SBA loan, the relief program that's out there. Are there other financial resources that you guys would like to share that you've seen that make a lot of sense? Jeff, you talked about staying connected with the bigger community organizations. Outside of your business groups, what other resources are you leveraging to stay in the know?
You cut out there a little bit, Kyle. Can you say that one more time?
I was just saying, what other communities are you leveraging out to stay up to date on what's going on?
Yeah, like I had mentioned, we, you know, being a union contractor, like I said, our CEO and president is, you know, constantly, he's on with AGC, ASA, just all the labor unions. They have, I think, last week it was almost daily, twice a day, phone conversations, just how to protect the employees, to make the site safer. We talked a lot about, like Lisa, the elevated platforms of getting people in, not using those as much, maybe changing different shifts on when the workers start, you know, so the union talking about that quite a bit. So just all our other local partners, like I said, AGC, ASA, just constantly staying in communication with them, our associations, Wall and Ceiling, constantly just having open communication of just adding to what we have and keep working on it to make it better and make the employees safe.
That's great.
But Kyle, is this a lob question? I'm tuning into AWCI webinars to get my information.
Was a lob question. Thank you, Lee.
But in addition to that, you know, our local trade association of Walls and Ceilings, and, you know, AWCI is always there, seriously. The Building Trades Employers Association, you know, and the good old news media is doing a pretty good job of letting the politicians actually speak and not criticize. And so, you know, I think all in all, there's a lot of good information out there. And I just gotta warn you the way I warn myself. Too much of that stuff can definitely make your head spin.
We're getting a lot of good information from our local association as well, the Northwest Wall and Ceiling Bureau and the Washington Contractors Association. The nice thing about that is it's information that's regional to our area. You know, the state of Washington, like I say, constantly changing and getting updates. Plus, it keeps all the people in our industry doing the same thing. All our you know, partners are getting out the same message. So it's really nice that we're all staying on the same message and being able to collaborate that way through the crisis. Like I say, I talked to a lot of my competitors here, and, you know, what are you guys doing? Trying to find out, you know, we're all in this together scenario. And we do rely on AWCI and a lot of the information there.
Great. A couple other valuable resources here for those of you who are not getting updates from your GCs or struggling to get inside information. The Construct Connect group has put together a freebie, which is a download by market of project delays and start date moves. So if you're, if you've got a project that was out to bid, or if you had a project start date that was coming up, those adjustments have been captured and are available without investment for you on their website. That's included in the Level Set's got some really good insight and information about what to expect and things that you can do to protect your business. And then obviously, if you want to know how your GCs are thinking or where they're getting some of their information, the National AGC has put together a website, and they're talking about not only what their action plans are and the guidance they're providing their GCs, but also the different ways in which they are lobbying and moving Congress or talking to people about. As I said before, the AWCI is putting together a collection of resources, so make sure you do go to awci.org/COVID-19 in order to get your resources. And with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. I haven't seen any come in yet, but that doesn't mean there aren't any out there.
In the meantime, Kyle, let me just mention that if anyone's in any of these big epicenters, the Army Corps of Engineers is soliciting people that are willing to work and to help out. You can go to their website and you send in a capability statement to them just so they know that they're out there.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that tip, Lee. Anne-Marie, do you see any questions?
Yes. How do you look to manufacturers for information?
Well, we've been keeping tabs with our manufacturers as far as, making sure that we are going to continue to get supplies. I think they're a good source if you've got a relationship with them to see, if they're, the sooner you can know if you're going to have material problems, that information is going to come from the manufacturers.
We're seeing a lot of notices from most of our manufacturers letting us know that they are open for business, to possibly expect some delays. But it's been nice just getting the touches that they're there to support those of us who are open for essential services.
Another question that has come in, has anyone started looking into the idea of mechanics liens at this stage?
Well, I can tell you in New York that, like a lot of things, an extension on tax deadlines, they've extended the statute on filing to preserve our rights in these times.
And Jeff, Larry, or Brittany, do you have anything to add to that?
I haven't seen that the statute's been changed here in California, but definitely an interesting question and something I'll look into.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've extended the deadlines here in Washington yet, but I do know that that one of the problems is that a lot of the government services are shut down, like the court and things. So you may want to file, but you may not even be able to file. And so, it was like DMV right now in the state of Washington. DMV is completely closed. You can't even go out and buy a car because you can't register it. So there's government services that are shut down that they're considering non-essential right now, like DMV and some of the courts.
Thank you. So the next question is to all panelists. So I'll read the question, and then if we just go in order, Brittany, if you want to give your thoughts, then Jeff, Larry, and then Lee. Are any of you dealing with the challenge where workers can almost make as much by staying home as going to work? An example, beefed up workers' comp, et cetera. Are you having to pay higher than market wages for the folks coming to the jobs?
We have not currently so far. Pretty much all of our workers, if they can work, they've been wanting to come to work. If, you know, I guess if it exists, we haven't ran into that yet.
And then for us, we haven't ran into that as yet either. And folks, they're making it to work fine. And I think we're just behind yet. So for us, we're not experiencing that right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. Yeah, our people are working. Now, that could change, but right now they want to work.
Well, in New York, you know, the wage is pretty high. So even with the supplemental unemployment insurance, it's not a disincentive to come back to work. But upstate, we did hear that that was a major tipping point. When people got wind that there was no waiting period in the extended unemployment insurance benefits, people were like, if I'm going to get paid close to what I'm getting paid, why am I going to risk and expose myself and my family to what's out there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that looks like all the questions that we have so far. So I'll just, we'll wait another few seconds. And while we're waiting to see if extra questions come in, on behalf of AWCI, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for today's convention and INTEX Expo Reconstructed. Thank you to Kyle, Brittany, Jeff, Larry, and Lee for sharing your time with us. We realize that all of you have a lot going on, just as our listeners do. So thank you for making time for your fellow AWCI members. And as a reminder, our program is recorded, and we will get that posted to AWCI's online program library. We'll also have it under the media news at AWCI. And we have some extra webinars coming up this week, additional ones, on April 1st, no joke. We have one, Navigating Uncharted Waters, Legal Ramifications, and our presenters will be Richard Capriola and Eric Coleman. Both of them are partners with Winter Capriola and Zenner, a law firm in Atlanta. And on April 2nd, we have a solution showcase that we're bringing to you via webinar. This is HIAB USA Incorporated. They are going to give a presentation on their Moffett truck-mounted forklifts features. So we do not have any additional questions coming in, but if anything comes to anyone's mind as we hang up or you get back with your teams and meetings, please send those questions to myself or Kyle, and we will get those answered for you. So be on the lookout for emails with details on upcoming AWCI convention and INTEX Expo Reconstructed events. It'll be a weekly Friday update that will recap and promote for what's up the next week. And please keep in mind that we have a program through the foundation called AWCI Cares, and this is where we can help members who fall on financial hard times. So if you have employees that are struggling, please go to our website, look up AWCI Cares. We have forms and a wealth of information there. So far, since 2004, we have awarded over $325,000 in grants. So we have to pay entities owed. We do not send money directly to the applicants, but it's a great resource that comes with your membership. So Thank you to everyone and have a productive day. Hope all of you and your team stay healthy and safe. So thank you all.